right. Here we are again. Bearded
It's
Banter.
Bearded Banter Saturday. Welcome back.
And welcome to Bearded Banter, which Wes and I have been talking a little bit before we start recording here about what even is Bearded Banter. You know, we should probably do like all the pros do and have like an intro where we introduce ourselves for all of our first time guests. I'm Jeremiah, and this is,
Wes,
and we are
Bearded
bantering.
Banter.
We are Bearded Banter, which is a show about everything and nothing, to steal a Seinfeld uh, quote, which Wes filled me in on before we started. Essentially, we're talking about everything and anything that comes to the table, things we're interested in, things we do, things we're curious about, and things that we think might be helpful for others to hear about as well. What would you add to that, Wes?
Just quenching the thirst for knowledge of all sorts of areas and topics that you might not have ever thought were interesting to you until you actually had it come across your table.
Yes. Yes. Like, if you didn't see our last episode, what comes in a collector's edition box for a video game? In our case, we unboxed Assassin's Creed Shadows. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you
All right.
did.
And it was
You
pretty
nailed it.
cool. It was pretty cool. Um,
They're right there now. That's where the statue is. It's a little dark back there, but you can't see it. The statue is now found its home
yeah, it's pretty cool.
on the shelf.
It's a pretty cool statue, man. I was honored to be able to hold it in my own hands. So if you haven't seen that episode, check it out. We're diving into some new and mysterious topics today. Wes has given me
Yes.
a couple of clues. I have no idea what we're about to talk about, but I have my two clues were that it has something to do with a tattoo and the word massive.
Massive. So, yeah, we are going to be talking about something quite massive. And I'll just lead it out with this.
Okay, so here's the fuller picture. That,
There is where the word massive came from.
all right.
That is the exact text that I cropped the picture out and sent it to you earlier in the week.
Yes, you
But we are
did.
talking about the Massive Verse, a comic book universe created by Kyle Higgins and Michael Buselli,
Hmm.
published by the Black Market Narrative and Image Comics.
Hmm.
Started releasing 2020 or 2021. But the Massive Verse is kind of the Image Comics new version of the Justice League or the Avengers. It's their group of superheroes. But in particularly, I was going to start off by talking about the character that started it all, Radiant Black.
What do you mean the character started it all? Was this the first character written
Yep.
about? Okay.
This was the first comic that was released in anything considered before there was a Massive Verse, it was just Radiant Black. And to answer the second part of that, the characters that I have tattooed on my arm are characters from the Massive Verse, which is
Oh,
why I was telling you that I was referencing my tattoo to you.
gotcha. Okay. So we've got
So
tattoo now forever. When I see those arm tattoos, I'll know. Is one of those radiant black?
Radiant Black has not yet made it to the arm yet
Uh-oh.
to decide which Radiant Black I was going to put on my arm.
Okay. All right. You froze up there for me for a second. I don't know if that was me or you, but what I heard was radiant black has not yet made it to an arm. And there's
No, not yet.
okay. All right.
Not yet.
So along the way, we may encounter a new tattoo at some point that is
Oh
radiant
yeah,
black.
no, this arm is my right arm is half done. Half done.
Okay.
I would, like I said, I was waiting for the story to unfold a little bit more of Radiant Black, which it has. It concluded of at least that arc of the story has concluded where I know what direction I'm going to take the tattoo now because it's going to end up being all the way up my arm by the time it's all said and done.
Okay. All right. So when you so outsider, by the way, I think one of the mini goals of Wes as involved in Bearded Banter is to fully convert as many people as possible to the nerddom, which it is affectionately called the kingdom of comic nerddom. And
Join the
so
fun side.
yeah, so if I'm from the outside looking in, I know about the Justice League, lots of
Yep.
cartoons, lots of TV shows. I know about, the Avengers. That's been, the Marvel universe has done a great job of putting the Avengers on full display for us. When I see and hear about the Massiverse and it connected to the Justice League, I think, oh, rip off copy. They're just trying to make money on maybe a brand or a theme or something that's already been done. Am I right? Am I wrong?
Kind of, but not really. Um, so the only relation to the Massiverse and the Justice League and the Avengers is that they have a team up every now and again. And by that, I mean once a year. And that once a year team up is called Supermassive. So once a year,
I
all the
like that.
characters will get together. Yeah. Once a year, the characters will all get together. They go on an adventure, and that book is titled Supermassive. But each of the individual characters on their own have their own story arcs, their own comics. They stand on their own merits, and you do not have to read the other ones to understand what's happening at all.
Hmm.
You can read, so like in this case, there is Radiance. Radiant Black encompasses Radiant Black, Pink, Red, and Yellow, and the Syndicate 5. And then there is Rogue Sun that stands on his own. There is Inferno Girl Red who stands on her own. There is no one who hasn't even teamed up with anybody yet. He hasn't teamed up with anybody at all. He's on his own.
Okay,
And
wait,
you
wait, wait.
also have
Hang on. No one who hasn't
no
teamed
one.
up with anyone.
Nope, it's no one. His
So
name is no one.
no one is a actual character.
No one.
Okay. No.
No one.
Well played there, writers. Well played.
No one. His
No
name
one.
is no one.
Okay. All right. Just
And
just making it clear here for the
yeah.
ignorant ones like me.
Yep. And then finally you have the Dead Lucky, who stands on her own. So once a year, there's a story told with a lot of these characters coming together for an adventure called Supermassive, but they each have their own stories on their own with their own adventures, their own characters, their own little worlds that do not interconnect. So unlike the Justice League and DC Comics and Marvel Comics with the Avengers, these characters rarely intertwine. They are in the same world, they're in the same universe together, but it's very rare that these characters actually their storylines actually interweave with everything else that's going on.
Okay.
Whereas in the Marvel and DC worlds, that's like the whole theme is Daredevil has this going on in his world, but this connects to Captain America with his things over here, and then that comes back and those connect somehow with the Hulk. Like they all kind of intertwine one way or the next, and
Okay.
it's one giant universe.
So I get the feel that there's two approaches to writing a universe. One is that um, you've got to buy them all, you've got to read them all, and forgive me for my capitalistic thinking here, but maybe it's even coming off as a little bit judgmental. But there's one perspective that is we want to get readers to experience more team ups, so potentially they have to buy them all. Um, and then in the other case, it's um, we're okay with you really enjoying one character, and you don't need to read all the characters to get a full depth of range of view on one character's story arc. But with the other
Correct.
one, you might need, if you're reading Daredevil, you might need to read more of Captain America to understand what's going on there.
You might. It might not be critical in Marvel and DC Comics, but with Marvel and DC Comics, they make a lot of hints and they make a lot of references to other events or characters comics in DC Comics.
Okay. All right.
So it
So
might you might not have to buy them all even in their statures, but it's kind of it would help a little bit more, it feels like.
gotcha. Okay. So you can still get the most out of the Marvel or DC universe, not reading all of them. I don't want to
Right.
misrepresent the either agency here, so thanks for the clarity on it. In the
Yeah.
midst of it, though, you're finding and seeing that the Massiverse is easier to read in single story plot form. You can do it at least. Maybe not easier, but you at least can do it. Uh oh. I think you're
Nope, I'm
freezing
still
up.
here.
Am I freezing up for you?
Yeah, it's all good on this end.
All right. It's just me, as usual. All right. So now I'm curious about going back to the um, initial character that started it all, the OG. Tell me
Radiant
about,
Black.
yeah, tell me about Radiant Black.
So our story starts with a very simple panel of a cell phone screen that shows a bank account balance. And that bank account balance is not very good. That bank account balance is negative $30,000, negative $38,000. It's not good. It's not very good at all. And we
Wait,
see our
are you talking about
character
my story or Radiant Black's story?
connectability, relatability.
Ah. All right.
Um, but our main character Nathan Burnett is sitting in his car and he's doing what that in their universe calls driver, which is basically like Uber or something like that. He's on the phone with a loan company trying to get some money to pay make his ends meet. It's obviously not going well. Things aren't going well for him, it's very clear. And a customer gets into his car for a lift and he starts breaking down in tears, crying because life has just not gone the way that he wanted to. And within the first issue, we see our main character, Nathan, forced to move home from LA to his home of Lockport, Illinois, back in with his parents. He's a failed writer. He didn't make it in Hollywood like or Los Angeles like he was hoping to, and now he's forced to move back home, where he meets up with his childhood best friend, Marshall Ward, and Marshall Ward takes him out to the bar, says, "Hey, let's catch up. We haven't seen each other in a long time. Let's go have some beers. Let's catch up." They get drunk. They're talking about how things didn't pan out in LA and things weren't going well. And Nathan is finally coming to a little bit of a term of he's got to do something about his debt. So Marshall and Nathan are heading home for the evening when they are crossing the train tracks. And on the train tracks, they see a mini black hole and obviously very curious about what is going on, trying to figure out what is this little mini black hole doing here? What is this thing that we're looking at? Nathan touches the black hole and he then assumes the powers of Radiant Black. He's transformed into the character. He's trying to figure out, he's very confused about what's going on. He has no idea what's happening, what just happened. Two police officers are coming up to them. They see these two drunk guys on the train tracks. Worried about their safety, and they try to stop them from being on the tracks, get them off the tracks. Marshall is a bit of a wild card, hothead, and he automatically instigates a fight with the police. A train is on its way. They're still standing on the tracks. Radiant Black, Nathan Burnett, in an instant, with his instincts, tries to help out and he lifts up inadvertently by accident, lifting up the police officers, Marshall, the squad car, and the entire train using the powers of Radiant Black to stop from anybody getting hurt.
Hmm.
He puts them all down. He says, "What did I just do?" And then they fly home. And then that is just about the end of issue 1 of Radiant Black.
Hmm. All right. So I'm catching that this black hole power already has, he can fly, he's super strong, and he also is in heavy debt.
Heavy debt.
So he can't, doesn't sound like he can magically solve his debt problem yet, but there's a lot of other problems that he's already starting to recognize he can solve. Anti-hero, hero, villain? Any
He's a
any
hero.
Okay.
He's definitely a hero.
He stays that way.
He's definitely a hero. He
Okay.
stays the hero. Yep.
Okay. It's interesting when humans in the comic worlds get these powers, how oftentimes I see the trajectory, and I don't know many of them, learning about them as we have these conversations, but I wonder just how many of us, if given those same powers, would stay on the hero track.
Well, I mean, that's a very interesting point to make because Radiant Red follows that kind of a story arc.
Oh, really?
So at the end of issue 1 of Radiant Black,
After the trains?
the after the trains, after the trains, Nathan and Marshall are talking about these powers of like, hey, what should we do with these? And
Do they? Oh, they
how should
both
we
have
go about?
powers? Or
No, just just
okay.
just Nathan. And they're trying to figure out how they're supposed to, what should they do with it? Should we do good? We got to do something good with this. And then foreshadowing, because of the last panel of Radiant Black issue 1, we get our first look at
Mm.
Radiant Red, who is robbing a bank.
He's got some money bags.
Look down a little bit.
It's a cool
Ooh,
looking
hello.
character. Real cool looking character.
Radiant
Kind of
Red.
kind of has a Spider-Man vibe to him for me.
So the best way that I describe Radiant Black is, and really all of the Radiants in general, the Radiants are Power Rangers if the Power Rangers were adults and had real issues. They weren't teenagers, they weren't high schoolers. They
Mm.
were adults who had real lives, who have real problems and have real issues, but they have these Power Ranger like powers that are on steroids. They're just over the top. Their
Okay.
power levels are over 9,000.
Okay. Which I have no
And
idea what that means, but
what? Yes, you do. You've
I
watched
don't.
Dragon Ball.
Yeah, but it's that's transferable to these things?
No, 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 no. It was just a reference to their power levels over 9,000 because
Oh,
When
okay.
Vegeta gets to Earth for the first time, he says it's over 9,000, crushes his scanner. That.
Yes.
Um,
All
but
right. So maybe I'm a
yeah.
little bit more in the nerddom than I want to admit. Maybe I am.
But yeah, so that's the best way that I describe it. It's like if Spider-Man grew up, had more problems, and had Power Rangers powers and stuff like that. It's kind
Okay.
of a mix of those kind of things. More leaning on the Power Rangers thing, which it really makes a whole lot of sense because the original writer of Radiant Black and most of the writers that are a part of these stories, Kyle Higgins, uh, Costa, I can't remember all of their names. There's like 15 different writers for this. I can't remember all their names. But most of these worked with Boom Studios on the actual Power Rangers comic books in the past like
Mm,
5 years, doing the Shattered Grid story arcs and things of that such.
okay.
So it really does make sense that Kyle Higgins has switched over to writing a story where the characters look like Power Rangers and they have Power Rangers type powers
Mm. Well,
amplified.
and the beauty of this medium is that we can basically just ask, because I know all those writers watch our show regularly, so we could
Oh,
just
every
ask
day.
them, how much was the Power Ranger experience, and you know as you watch right now, writer of Radiant Black, um
Kyle Higgins, love
Kyle
you.
Higgins, thank you. How much of your work with Power Rangers was an inspiration for your work in the Radiant storylines? We'd love to hear that in the comments below, Kyle. So tell me a little bit more about the rest of these characters, because now I'm curious about Radiant Red. And you mentioned a few more of them in the opening there about the different characters. And I didn't realize, I
Right.
was thinking they were all on the same team.
So the Radiants, they're all on the same team. The Dead Lucky, Inferno Girl Red, Rogue Sun, they're all on the same squad together. No one is really the only kind of singled one. We don't even know who no one is. That's how secretive no one is.
Mm,
No one, so we'll probably end up doing breakdowns of each character individually, different separate episodes, because there's a lot to talk about.
mm.
Lots of banter to be had. But
I
so
agree.
we have Set that over there. We do have Radiant Pink.
All
That's
right.
Eva. She is a streamer and a YouTuber influencer.
Okay.
You've got Radiant Red. That is Satomi, which turned out it was a woman who was Radiant Red.
I did not think from that first picture. This is the same person that was holding
Same
those
one.
bags.
Yep. They did it
Okay.
on purpose because it was kind of like a cliffhanger surprise.
It threw you off. Yeah.
Yep. And that's
Which makes me
Satomi.
think they say it was a cliffhanger, but they really just hadn't had it figured out yet. That's my
They
guess.
might not have. They might
Yeah.
not have.
Yeah.
But Satomi is a teacher. Her husband has a gambling addiction and gets him into massively wild amount of debt. And she ends up gaining the powers of the Radiant Red and robs banks to pay her debts.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
Sensing a
that
theme of
story,
debt and recovery from it. Okay.
right,
Using your powers to get out of debt.
right.
First
And
story
then
arc.
Yeah, Radiant Yellow has yet to get his own standalone series. That is Wendell. Wendell is the oldest Radiant. He is in his late 50s and he has the power of seeing the future and he's almost got like a Doctor Strange thing where he can see all different timelines and outcomes and everything. It's
Okay.
pretty wild.
Representing the boomers.
Then we've got Rogue Sun, and this is kind of more of your younger Peter Parker, high school kid. His name is Dylan, struggles a lot with being a bully and is forced to take over the mantle of a hero.
Mm, he
And
is
there's
the
a big
bully.
struggle with that. He is the bully.
Okay.
He is the bully.
Yeah, I'm
Then
curious
you
about that.
have,
Like how to like exactly what I was thinking about before. Like if I put my if I put all of my characteristics on superpower, then
right,
which ones win the day? When I when I realize I have agency and self assurance or not, and I walk in either insecurity or confidence, and now I get these incredible powers. What do the writers do with that? You know, because it can go
right.
just as bad as oftentimes it goes good.
Absolutely. And then you have Inferno Girl Red. She has the
Okay,
power of the Inferno Stone. Her name is Casa.
so these
I'm
aren't
pretty sure
all.
I butchered that.
They're not all. Excuse me. Black hole type of thing. So at first I was
No.
thinking, oh, radiant black, black hole. Radiant red, red hole.
Yep. Yep.
Radiant yellow, yellow hole. Like a yellow black hole of some sort. And that
Yep.
they all get their powers the same way. But it
Yep.
sounds like
The
there's
Radiants
different
do.
ways. Oh, the radiants do. That is indeed
The
how the
Radiants get
radiants do.
their powers from the black holes, but the Rogue Sun, he has the power of the Rogue Stone. Inferno Girl Red has the power of the Inferno Stone. The
Mm.
Dead Lucky, which is the next character, that is BB,
Mm.
and she has like a PTSD electromagnetic powers. It's very, very fascinating.
Wait, you said PTSD,
Yep.
electromagnetic powers.
Yep, because her powers they spur from her PTSD as a soldier.
Okay, so we're not just getting into financial woes, we're getting into like psychological woes as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then the last one is No One. And No One is kind of your Batman of this universe because he has no powers. He has a lot of stuff, but
How
we
is he
don't know
flying through the
who.
air?
Oh, he's just jumping off a building. He
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
fly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one no one is probably the most interesting in my opinion out of all of these because no one was only 10 issues and which 10 individual comics. And with each comic that they released every month, there was a podcast released simultaneously with it that tied into it, that
Hmm.
directly tied into No One. And the podcast was titled Who is No One, which was voiced with Patton Oswalt, which love Patton Oswalt, love his work,
Hmm.
and Julia
Thank you, Patton.
Baker. I think Julia Baker was the other one. And it basically was a murder mystery uh podcast that they were trying to determine who is no one, how does the evidence link back to all these suspects,
Hmm.
and it was linked to real world events in Pittsburgh. real
Oh,
world murders and stuff that actually happened in Pittsburgh.
and so the podcast is real world incidences connected to fiction comic hero, and how do these things correlate to finding
Yep.
out who is no one?
Right.
Hmm. And I
Yeah.
think we can put, I'm going to count on you, Wes, to put the link for that podcast in our show notes from today's
Yeah,
episode. So if
absolutely.
people are curious about that, they can look into it.
But yeah, but
And
that
by people, I
is
mean me.
but that is the characters of this universe,
Oh,
all titled and labeled under the Massive Verse. And the
right.
Massive Verse has spanned over clothes, like the shirt that I'm wearing is a radiant black shirt.
Okay.
They have done like Inferno Girl Red was a Kickstarter program that was backed by fans of the series. This is a this is the trade paperback that they released initially, but the Kickstarters themselves got a nice hard copy of the book itself.
Mm, of
And actually, my name is in this book as one of the patrons of supporting the book.
course, I would expect no less. So,
And
what was the Kickstarter? What was,
so the
did they have a
Kickstarter
product?
was, yeah, it was for the book Inferno Girl Red. It was
Oh,
for the book itself because
okay.
it was an unannounced project that they had done. So Kyle Higgins kind of laid out a lot of hints and a lot of the groundwork for this massive verse in Radiant Black. In the first like 5, 6 issues, he gave some subtle hints in the books themselves that these characters were coming. So, ow, don't do that.
For the sake of our subscribers here and listeners, Wes had a very bad accident this week for his left thumb there. Poor guy, almost cut it off. He forgot that kitchen
It's
tools
always my
are sharp.
fingers. It's always my fingers, man. It can never not be my fingers.
Well, I think it's a good thing that it's your fingers. I don't know what else you'd want to be cutting your dinner with. Just keep it your fingers out there. Just be a little bit slower on the mandolin. That thing's sharp.
Mandolins are sharp. Did you know that they're sharp?
Yeah, I
I didn't
heard.
know that they're sharp.
I heard. I
I
don't
know
use them
now.
very often because they're so sharp. I want to be careful. I wonder if people
Aha,
think we're
there's the
talking
panel.
about a mandolin instrument right now. Like, why is he cutting vegetables with an instrument?
So it might be kind of hard to see, but this is the second trade paperback for Radiant Black, and Radiant Pink has transported them to Tokyo to get them away from an enemy that they were fighting. And you can kind of see it in the billboard of the background here. You can kind of see Rogue Sun and the Dead Lucky on the billboards.
Oh yeah, I would have thought
So
that
you,
was. It looks like Iron Man is in there. No, but I might be.
no, that's
That's somebody else. See, I've just been marvelized.
yeah. But so Kyle Higgins was putting out hints to the fans that more characters were coming to this universe, that they were building something a little bit different and not atypical of what we have seen before.
Hmm. Okay, so I get the feeling like this is going to be a ongoing conversation about each of these characters, each of these heroes, their
Yeah,
stories, and what makes them compelling. Maybe, maybe we could talk about the first, like we did with Radiant Black. You could share with the listening audience what is kind of the origin story of each of these,
yeah,
so we get a better idea. And then
yeah,
um, I'd like to hear too from folks who's already in the know on this, who's already, maybe they're like, Wes, you don't, he told the story all wrong. This is really what it was about. You know, maybe,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah,
Curious.
absolutely.
How popular is this in the grand scheme of comic worlds and universes? Is this like top five? Pretty well known.
So I think it's in comic book terminologies and comic book sense, I'd say it's probably right in the middle of the pack. I don't think it's wildly popular. When it first came out, it exploded. It exploded. I mean, I kind of gauge a little bit how popular something is based on how hard it is to get the merchandise for it.
Okay.
That's kind of how something that I would gauge. So the black market narrative is Kyle Higgins' initiative to bring in indie writers so that they have a platform to put out their stories that might not get picked up by the larger publishers. And the black market narrative is where he puts out all of the exclusive things for Radiant Black and the Massiverse: clothes, merchandise, posters, all that stuff. So like this poster that I have in particular was from a San Diego Comic Con. It was an exclusive. You could only get it at San Diego Comic Con for a little while. And for the first like 6 months that they after they announced it. And it was really hard to get a hold of. I ended up buying mine off of eBay for a little bit more of a price because I wanted it
Mm-hmm.
and I found it. But I would definitely say that Radiant Black is kind of middle of the pack. The Massiverse is kind of middle of the pack. They are popular. Radiant Black is still getting published. They're still a monthly issue. Rogue Sun is getting published still. They have books scheduled all the way out through the end of this year. Radiant Pink and Radiant Red, they had solo mini series that were only like 5, 6 issues long, so they're done and over with. And the Dead Lucky was only a 12 issue series that was only supposed to be 12, so that's all done and over with. Like No One, same thing. It was only supposed to be a mini series, and they it's ran its course.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the three that are they're trying to continuously push through are Radiant Black, Inferno Girl Red, and Rogue Sun. Rogue Sun and Radiant Black are monthly issues that come out, and Inferno Girl Red is again a Kickstarter. They did for book number two, they did a Kickstarter for book number two, which is supposedly coming later this summer, sometime around May, June time is when I think we're going to expect Inferno Girl Red book number two to come out. And that's just so that they can have a little bit more free creative freedom with what they do with it.
Okay. So they don't have to adhere to like a publishing house
Right.
regulation rule. They can kind of take it whatever creative direction they want.
Right, right,
Okay.
right. Either that or the publishers didn't think it was a good enough idea, so they thought it was a good enough idea, so they're like, we're still going to push through this,
Right.
which I agree. I love Inferno Girl Red, but I'm also very biased. I love all of this stuff. I've latched onto the Radiant Black and the Massiverse very, very quickly. It was actually what inspired me to get back into comics in general, because before I started picking comics back up during COVID time. In Radiant Black, I saw an advertisement for it in another book, and I was like, man, that looks really cool. That design looks cool. I'm going to check it out. I couldn't find it. I had a hard time finding issue one, and then I found issue one, and I've been addicted right from the get-go, right
Yeah.
from the first panel itself.
Yeah. What was it about the episode one that hooked you?
The relatability, the fact that Nathan Burnett is out there chasing his dreams. He's given it his all and he's failed. And now he has to pay for those failures. He's forced to move back home. He's in financial ruins and his life is upended. He doesn't know what he's going to do now because now the thing he wants to do, he can't do. He doesn't have his independence no more because he's got to move back home with mom and dad. And I feel like in this day and age, a lot of people could probably relate to that. They've tried to chase their dreams for one reason or the next. It failed or didn't work out, and they had to move back into a situation that they didn't want to move back into. I feel like that's more of a common theme than anything this day. And Marshall is your typical hometown kid that just never left. You know, he still lives at home with his parents, and he has a job. He's a big movie guy, loves his movies, big movie critic and lover and buff, knows everything about him, and just has never found his footing in life. And there's a lot of people out there like that too, that just they don't know what they want to do.
Mm,
Even into their adulthood, they have no idea what makes them truly happy, and it's a tough avenue to find.
okay.
Or like Radiant Red, Satomi, she is in a fantastic relationship. She's about to get married. They're engaged, but because of a gambling addiction, well, now we're millions of dollars in debt, and I gain these superpowers. Now I have a tough choice to make. Do I do it for my own selfish benefit, or do I go help others? And she chooses to do it for her own selfish benefit.
Hmm.
Radiant Pink is a person, Eva, she is a streamer, she's an influencer and has a big following, a big fan base, but feels a very disconnect from the rest of her life. She has a relationship that falls through because she still has to go to school and she's doing the streaming thing. She's trying to make a living, trying to make a footing. I just feel like every character that they've written has some sort of sense of relatability to us everyday people, where we can sit there and say, man, I understand your struggle.
Hmm.
And then you throw in the superhero element to it.
Yeah, yeah, and so it's relatability. It's the mirror of a good story. You can see yourself in it and almost get lost in it and find a space to um, dream again, imagine again, intuit again, and start to enjoy some space outside of the world you're in, but also connected to the day in and day out stress. Give yourself a little bit of a break. Now, as we talk more about this, what topics do you envision or imagine coming up the more we talk about the massive verse?
But I think the most interesting topic would be the card game,
Oh, okay.
because not this past year they partnered with Solus Game Studio, who made the card game Pocket Paragons, and they made their own. They partnered up with them to make the Massive Verse card game.
Huh. So this is a little bit bigger than, I mean, middle of the pack. You still got a lot of ways to engage with these stories and characters.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, for
And
sure.
as always, Wes has everything in hand to demonstrate. So if you're wondering at home, how can I learn more about this massive verse? Keep tuning in because we're gonna
Please call me.
keep talking about it.
I will talk Massive Verse all day long. I actually, in preparation for today's episode, I reread all of the Radiant Black series this
Hmm.
week, so make sure that all of my knowledge was fresh on it,
Yeah.
which is not a lot. I mean, it is and isn't a lot because I don't read a whole lot outside of this Radiant Black stuff and the Massiverse stuff and comics here and there. But that was about 32 issues that I read through this week.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you for putting in the time and the prep. You're fully ready to deep dive into any one of these characters. So I'm grateful for that. Um, as you as you said, you're not reading much. I've been reading some things too, and I'm currently kind of caught up in the topic of well, two different topics for me. Um, the Obesity Code is a book that I read over the break back in December, and uh, I'm also reading a book on. I shared this with Wes during the week. A book on the topic of narcissism. So
Yeah,
I'm I'm not anywhere near ready to talk about it yet because it's such a hot topic. I want to make sure I'm a little bit more informed. But I'm
both of them I feel like hot topics.
oh yeah yeah always
I
right
feel like both of them are.
yeah. So I'm looking forward to talking more about those, and maybe there's more overlap in these topics than what I thought in terms of the characters. Now, as you describe them, there's this kind of clear and present tension between am I the center of this universe or am I going to choose to see the world differently? And that's a lot of times what the narcissist faces, and for whatever reason, how they're brought up, or just
Right.
the way they're shaped even by their own thinking. Um, and then, I wonder, are there any characters in the story that struggle with obesity like Jeremiah does?
I haven't seen one yet. I haven't seen one yet, but I'm
That would
sure
be
I can find
relatable
a
to
comic
me.
book character that is struggling with that. I'm sure I can find one.
Yeah.
I feel like comics are a great avenue for relatability just in general. I mean, you think about some of the comics coming up throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, like The Watchmen. The Watchmen was a great, 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 great twist and play on the Cold War.
Hmm.
And that was the first comic book that I read. That graphic novel was The Watchmen. And then you have other graphic novels that aren't even about superheroes, like Muse. Muse is a comic book about the concentration camps from World War II, where mice are portrayed as the Jewish people and cats are portrayed as the Germans. And it's actually on banned list because, censorship.
Yeah.
And that is another, like, comics have such a great way of being able to portray stories much more vividly and really ignite your creativity and your inspiration and your imagination on a level that tip regular books don't do. Don't get me wrong. Reading books is a very good thing. I I need to be better about reading books in general.
Mhm.
But there's just something about seeing the text bubbles and seeing the characters drawn out. Like now you can even play them out more in your head. I mean, with regular textbooks, I feel like you are left to your imagination's whims. The only extent is your imagination. Whereas with comic books, the writer and illustrators are telling you what their vision is. They're showing you what their vision is and how they wanted it to be portrayed. And you can get a little bit more sense of the story and maybe even get a little bit more connected with the characters. That might just be me because my slow brain has an attention span that of an ant. So that could just be me, and I could be out of pocket entirely. But that's just where I kind of sit with it.
Yeah, well, I think there's an old axiom, you probably heard it. Leaders are readers. But what I like to rephrase that in the concept of it's not really reading that is the what leaders are doing. What they're doing is learning. So leaders are learners, and if they learn by reading, whether it's a comic book or a, a blog post or a textbook, whatever it is, leaders are people who choose to learn every day in some way. So, however, whatever medium you're using to learn, that's really the goal is to develop, understand concepts from different perspectives, grow in your understanding of other people's perspectives so that you can have a more meaningful connection with them as you move forward. And I think oftentimes we judge different mediums that are different than the ones we use because they're foreign to us and we're afraid of what's foreign. So we judge it and we run from it or we villainize it. So thanks for representing again so beautifully and excellently the things we can learn from comic books. I'm going to
It's my
enjoy these
pleasure.
conversations, man.
I'm always open to learning more things and teaching people things about things that, like I said, they would have never thought piqued their interest until it comes across their table.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like that's half of how collections and hobbies start is you just happen to see something that, oh wow, you can do something like that. I could do something like that. That looks like fun. And then all of a sudden you're down a rabbit hole and you've spent 3 hours on YouTube watching tutorials and Googling how you can get involved with things like that. I
Yeah.
mean, I love seeing people fall down that rabbit hole and just igniting their inner child and their inner creativity, their imagination. Because I feel like that's something that gets lost, especially in today. Everything's got to be so serious. Have fun. Have some fun sometimes. Self
Yeah.
care matters, people. Self care matters.
Yeah. It sure does. So I think that might be a good stopping point. We're talking about the massive universe or the massive verse. We're going to be talking about the individual components or the squad members of that massive verse team. And also, I like to throw in there what can we learn from it? What are the things about our lives as we, whether it's self care is important or play in the importance of it? We talked about that a little bit last time in the Assassin's Creed episode. Um, and also, how do these things connect for us in ways where we live, where we are? So maybe you're watching and you're like, man, I something stood out to me. Ask yourself, what do I need to do about it? What am I doing? I would love for Bearded Banter to be a catalyst for more play in people's lives where they haven't had a hobby and they choose to do so. That'd be super cool. So
Absolutely.
that's the challenge.
Absolutely. Just to find some sort of enjoyment in your life at any aspect of it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's very easy to fall to the tropes of the doom and gloom of what could be and what may be. Living in the present matters so much more. Don't live in what could be, live in the moment. Find something that brings you joy and go with it. Go do it. If it's just a simple go for a walk, go read a comic book, go play a video game, go to a friend's house, go to the store and buy a Starbucks. That's for some people, that's a huge part of their day. Go enjoy it and be in the moment. Live in the present, be in the moment, and enjoy it as it comes. And I think the other big important lesson that I've learned from reading comic books and superheroes just in general is it's not always the actions that define you. It's the lessons and the things that you learned
Mm,
from those actions that can mold you.
mm, well said.
Cue the superhero music.
Du-du-du. That was my version of superhero. All right. Thanks, Wes. And thank you all for subscribing and hitting the bell and subscribing. Share with your friends. Let them know Bearded Banter is on a roll. Bye for now. Anything, any
And
last
always,
words,
we'll see
Wes?
you in the next one.
We'll
We'll
see
see you
you
in
in
the
the
next
next one.
video. Take
Yeah.
care of each other.